Alright, this video is going to give you the answer key to our Chapter 7 formative assessment, and also go through some of the most important things that we learned in the Chapter 7 text that we went through together. So take a look and let me know if you have any questions. So for Student Standard 1, I can evaluate a mathematical problem and create appropriate problem-solving strategy to produce a complete and accurate solution. Your task was to first complete a table in which you're trying to determine the number of, based on the number of t-shirts, what would the cost in dollars of those t-shirts would be. So it says the school club is ordering t-shirts. Each t-shirt costs $12. Notice I marked my text there so I understand exactly what the cost was. And it says for letter A, complete the table. So it says number of t-shirts and then the cost in dollars on the other side, in the other column. So if there's one t-shirt and each costs $12, then one t-shirt is going to cost $12. There's two t-shirts and each one costs $12. 2 multiplied by 12 would equal $24. Then 3 t-shirts, 3 multiplied by 12 would equal $36. And for 4 t-shirts, 4 multiplied by 12 equals $48. For letter B, it said use your table to construct a graph. Be sure to label the axes. So on my graph, the first thing I wanted to do was make sure that I had my graph labeled appropriately. So when I look at the x-axis, the x-axis is the horizontal axis. That would probably make the most sense to have your number of t-shirts there, because those are the smaller numbers, going 1 through 4 versus the cost. And the number of t-shirts is the independent variable. The cost depends on the number of t-shirts, and typically you have your independent variable on the horizontal axis or the x-axis. Okay? So the number of t-shirts, notice how I spread out my number of t-shirts. I didn't put 1, 2, 3, and 4 right next to each other on the same, or on the next lines. I spaced it out. I gave 4 vertical lines in between each number of t-shirts that I put down, so just so that it's easier to read for the people viewing my graph. The y-axis, or the dependent variable, I put the cost in dollars because that depends on the number of t-shirts. For example, if there's 1 t-shirt, it costs $12. 3 t-shirts would be $36. Okay, and I made a decision to space out my dollars on the y-axis by going up by 3s each time. So each line was 3, and I did that because there are 20 total horizontal lines on the graph, and my highest number that I needed to get to was $48. So I wanted to space it out a little bit more than just having every 5. If it was still every 5, I'd only have my my points that I plotted about halfway up the graph. This way I can spread out my points a little bit more clearly and make things a little bit more easy to read for my viewers. So there you can see with 1 t-shirt there is $12, 2 t-shirts $24, 3 t-shirts $36, 4 t-shirts $48. And we'll get into why I did not connect the points later in the justification portion. For letter C, it says define a variable for the quantity that changes, then write an algebraic expression for the cost. So I said n equals the number of t-shirts, that's my variable, and it changes. Right, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that changes. What doesn't change is the cost. So it says write an algebraic expression for the cost. Well, 12 multiplied by n, because it's $12 per t-shirt, would equal the cost of the t-shirts. If I put any of those numbers in for n, if there's one t-shirt, 12 multiplied by 1 would equal 12. If there's two t-shirts, I put 2 in for n, it would equal 24, and so on. So there's my expression. Remember, when you put a variable right next to a number, that means multiplication, and the number in front of the variable is the numerical coefficient. The numerical coefficient, that's saying what you multiply the variable by. The next section says evaluate each numerical expression. Show all your work. So the first expression says 32 divided by 4 minus 2 multiplied by 4. Remember my order of operations, we can think of GEMDAs, grouping, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. Now division and multiplication, remember, are equally strong. They're equally powerful. So you do what comes first, left to right. So first I have 32 divided by 4, which equals 8. And then I rewrote my expression 8 minus 2 multiplied by 4. And what's stronger? Multiplication, because again, if you don't do the multiplication first, you won't get that repeated addition that you would want to get if you did it the other way. You want to have the 2 multiplied by 4, which you need to have. So it would be 8 for 2 multiplied by 4, and then 8 minus 8 equals 0. The next expression, 15 plus, in parentheses, 7 minus 4 cubed, 15 plus 3 cubed, because you need to do parentheses first, would be the next line. So 3 cubed, because 7 minus 4 equals 3. You do the parentheses first, and then the grouping symbols. So you're cubing everything in the grouping symbols, which would be the 3 that was the result of your subtraction. And 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 equals 27, and 15 plus 27 equals 42. The next problem, 12 plus 45 plus 3 squared. You again do exponents first, so 12 plus 45 divided by 9, because 3 multiplied by 3 equals 9. And then the next step would be to divide. 12 plus 45 divided by 9, and 45 divided by 9 equals 5. Again, you divide, because then you get that repeated subtraction that you wouldn't otherwise get if you added 12 plus 45 first. Then you'd be dividing 57 by 9, and that's not the intention of the operations. So it says 12 plus 5 equals 17, and that would be the complete evaluation of that expression. In the next section, again, we have to evaluate each expression for the given value. Here we have some variables that we have to do some substituting. So if we look at the first one, it says 14 plus 8 divided by 2 minus y. So again, like the previous problems, you do the division first, so you can get that repeated subtraction. So 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So then your new expression is 14 plus 4, and then if you substitute the 6 in for y, it'd be 4 minus 6. So you add first, because addition and subtraction are equally strong. 14 plus 4 equals 18, minus 6 equals 12. The next problem says 8 multiplied by h divided by 4 if h equals 5. So there you'd put 5 in for h. So 8 multiplied by 5 divided by 4. So 8 multiplied by 5 is 40, divided by 4, and would equal 10. Again, multiplication and division are equally strong, so you do what comes first, left to right. The next problem, 5x minus 4 if x equals 3. So we put 3 in for x, 5 multiplied by 3. Remember, 5 would be the numerical coefficient of the variable, which means you need to multiply. So 5 multiplied by x, or 5 multiplied by 3. So that would equal 15, that product would. And minus 4 would equal 11. The last section for the precision section involves square roots and cube roots. So it says the square root of 81, and that would be 9 because that's asking what multiplied by itself equals 81, and it would be 9. 9 multiplied by 9 equals 81 for its product. Then we have the square root of 49, and that would be 7 because 7 multiplied by 7 equals 49. The third one, we have the cube root of 64, which equals 4 because 4 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 4 equals 64. So again, cube roots are asking what number multiplied by itself 3 times equals that number. So 4 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 4. 4 multiplied by 4 is equal to 16, and 16 multiplied by 4, that product equals 64. And then lastly, the cube root of 1,000 is equal to 10 because 10 multiplied by 10 equals 100, and 100 multiplied by 10 equals 1,000. So the cube root of 1,000 equals 10. Alright, in the justification portion, it said to first use the graph from standard 1 to answer the following question. It says, does it make sense to connect the points on the graph? Explain why or why not. And no, it does not make sense to connect the points on the graph because the graph is referring to the cost of a t-shirt or t-shirts. You know, if you think about that, you can't have half of a t-shirt. You can't, go to a store and ask them to cut your t-shirt in half because you want to buy a part of it. So it wouldn't make sense to connect the dots because that would imply that you'd have that part of a t-shirt, which, it wouldn't make sense unless you're using them for rigs, which we're really not in this case. So no, it would not make sense to connect the points on the graph for that reason. The next part says justify why 27 divided by 3 plus 11 multiplied by 2 is a numerical expression. It's a numerical expression because a numerical expression is a phrase that includes numbers, symbols, and operations. This expression meets those requirements. It has numbers like 27, 3, 11, and 2. It also has operations like the division sign, the addition, and multiplication. So it meets all those requirements. It's not an algebraic expression because it doesn't contain variables. So that's the difference between a numeric expression and an algebraic expression. And then the last portion says, explain the difference between an equation and an expression. So it says an equation is a mathematical sentence that contains an equal sign. An expression is a mathematical phrase that includes numbers, symbols, operations, and variables, like I stated earlier. An equation can contain all those things as well, so it's basically an expression, but it must have that equal sign. You must set it equal to something. So on the bottom here I have a couple of examples of expressions. 2 plus 2 multiplied by 3, 2n, remember, means 2 multiplied by n, and 4n plus 3. Those are all examples of expressions. Whereas equations would be 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? There's a phrase, but it's equal to something. A mathematical phrase with variables, or excuse me, with operations and numbers, but it equals something. 2n equals 6, right? It equals something. It equals 6. And then 4n plus 3 equals 15, again, with the equal sign. That changes the expression into an equation. All right, and that was your Chapter 7 formative assessment. Hopefully you did well on it. Make sure you take some time to review, double check your answers, keep working through some of those problems that I gave you to practice, and come prepared for that Chapter 7 summative. All right? Keep working hard. Talk to you soon.